If you're an early stage agency owner, by far the most important thing that you need to understand and that you need to get good at is persuasion. And so what I want to do for you in this video is break down the 7 things that makes a salesperson great. And if you don't know who I am, I'm Matt. I built an agency and now I'm building a coaching business, basically teaching people what I did with the agency and still do with the coaching business. And really the entire goal with what we do is helping more early stage agency owners hit that $10, $20, $30,000 per month mark. So the first thing is abundance. So let's imagine that there are 2 versions of you. One version of you hop on a sales call, and this is your only sales call that you've booked this week. And the second version of you is you hopped on the sales call, and it's the 3rd of 5 sales calls you have that day, right? This version of you is going to be very worried, very scared, and really just have a scarcity mindset, to where this person, of course, as I'm sure you'd expect, will kind of have that abundance mindset. Now, everybody talks about abundance mindset. You don't want to have a scarcity mindset. The real and only way to embrace having that abundance mindset is what? It's by actually having that abundance, right? So before anything else, we need to make sure that you're very consistently booking 3, 4, 5 sales calls per day. That should be the minimum standard, because that's going to change your energy hopping into calls. So before anything else, it should be, or at least you should make it a goal to be, a minimum standard that you're booking multiple sales calls per day, so that you can kind of have the correct energy hopping onto the calls in the first place. Now, very similarly to this abundance thing, the second thing, number 2, is your beliefs around sales, right? So the way that you see sales, your paradigm, your beliefs around it is so crucial. At the end of the day, there is a certain set of beliefs that high-level elite reps and closers use, and there is a certain set of beliefs that kind of lower-level, trashy, just terrible closers have. And the biggest one is going to come down to abundance, which is what we just covered. But aside from that, the things that you believe and the things that you kind of say to yourself pre-call, during call, and post-call are going to matter the most, right? If you genuinely believe someone when they say, I want to think about it, and you can't see it for what it is, which is a smokescreen objection, then of course you're not going to close, right? If you genuinely believe that your market does not have the money to give to you, if you pitch something and it's $5,000 and then give you a money objection, you're not even going to bother doing a financial audit and seeing if it's true and working out a payment plan. You're just going to assume that they're broke. These assumptions and these beliefs, and inside of Olympus, there's a word for it we use called BJASK, which stands for beliefs, judgments, assumptions, stories, and convictions. These kind of BJASKs that you have surrounding your niche and surrounding you in relation to your niche, they're going to matter so much when it comes to your closing, right? Imagine somebody who thinks, my niche is poor, my service is kind of meh, I'm not too confident, versus somebody who genuinely thinks that, okay, it would be stupid for them to not come on board. They have the money, it's a no-brainer, the offer makes sense. They should be coming on, and they're a bit stupid if they don't, right? If they're a good fit. Just beliefs alone, without changing a script, without changing anything else, that's the most important thing. Now, the third thing, which is what we just mentioned, is the offer itself, right? At the end of the day, the same way that the offer is kind of the 80-20 of your outbound, it's going to be the exact same thing with your sales process. If you don't have an amazing grand slam offer, then of course your sales call conversion rate is going to be absolutely terrible. And a bad closer with an insane offer is going to do a lot better than an amazing closer with a shit offer. The offer is, at the end of the day, the biggest needle mover. It's the most important thing that we have to kind of conquer before anything else, okay? So these first 3, which are kind of that abundance, your beliefs, and your offer, these are kind of the preliminary things that you need to get done before actually hopping onto the call. And then these next 4 things are going to be things that you can implement today and implement while you're on your sales calls. Now, the 4th thing here is calm confidence. So what this is when you're on a call, instead of being like overly pushy and being very needy, having a much more silent, much more relaxed, much more kind of almost sophisticated manner is going to do you absolute wonders on sales calls. And the biggest part of this by far is staying silent. So many of us will just yap. I've seen it on so many sales call reviews that I do for my clients. Maybe they drop the pricing and then they keep talking for another 2 minutes. Or the prospect asks a question in the objection handling phase, we answer it within a few sentences, and then we continue to talk for another 2 minutes, right? The biggest, most powerful thing you could do is just to stay silent, right? That's what's going to kind of properly set the correct frame and the correct kind of dynamics of the call. It's not you yapping for 90% of the call. It's especially in the kind of line of questioning in the start of the call where we're asking questions. We ask a question, and we shut up until they're completely finished. We give them some extra space, then we say, okay, and continue on with the next question, right? Being calm, being confident, and being sophisticated while we're on the calls. Not coming onto it with kind of like, boyish energy. Of course, there's a time and a place for that, maybe when it comes to the pitch, but throughout the majority of the call, being a lot more calm, a lot more relaxed, and a lot more just genuinely confident in that way. The fifth thing here is openness. So what that means is, first of all, being completely open and completely okay with letting the call go if they're a bad fit. But in the same way, being completely open and ready to push and do everything you can to get someone to join. Use all the tactics, do everything you can to get someone to join if they are a good fit, right? We need to kind of have both ends of the spectrum here, right? Someone's a bad fit, it does not matter if they say, I have the money, I'm ready to go, I want to pay you, let's do this. Doesn't matter how convicted, how confident they are. If you genuinely know that you can't help them and they are a bad fit, it's your moral obligation to not do that and to tell them no, to not take their money, right? But on the other side of the coin, if maybe they have some objections, they're a bit nervous, they're a bit doubtful, but you genuinely know that if they were to come on board with your service and with your agency, their life would change forever. The same way that it's your moral obligation not to close that person, it is your moral obligation to close this person, right? So you should be completely willing and ready to let go of this person, and completely willing and ready to go all in on this person and do everything you can to kind of push them over the line and make sure that they do close. And number 5.5, this is kind of like a bonus thing that we kind of just mentioned, is what I like to call a Rossianism, which is what we just talked about, which is closing with moral intent and moral integrity, right? Closing from the standpoint of what is genuinely the prospect's best interest. So when I talk about openness and being open, it's basically not being afraid to use that to its fullest extent, right? You should be doing absolutely everything you can to close these people who are good fits, and nothing to close these people who are not good fits. The number 6, this is a very, very simple one, and this is something that you're going to be doing off sales calls, is repetition of learning. Right. So for example, inside of my program, Olympus, we have a part of it called high yield sales. And that's where we go over all the sales tactics that we have, all the scripts, all the kind of first principle knowledge that we have. That's honestly incredible. The most important thing that somebody could do for the sales process is to rewatch high yield sales weekly or bi-weekly or monthly. Of course, the more the better. But when you first go through something like high yield sales, it's so insane and there's so much new knowledge that typically you're only going to really remember 15 to 30% of it. So just kind of going through it again and again and again and again, and drilling and installing kind of the entire high yield sales process into your mind again and again and again, week on week on week, that's going to be the most important thing you do. Above, rewatching your own calls, above anything else, getting the first principles instilled into your brain and remembering them like clockwork is going to be the most important thing, right? So once you've done this, you should be at a point where you can be out getting a coffee at the cafe and somebody comes up to you and says, I want to think about it. And just like instantly, like it's trained into you like you're a dog, you're able to immediately kind of overcome that and be like, okay, cool. It's an objection, it's a smoke screen. Okay, cool. First of all, I need to retie, I need to double down, I need to find the real objection, right? Kind of having it ingrained into you is going to be the most important thing. Now, after that, number 7, this, honestly, it's kind of like the encapsulation of all of these points. And none of these points matter if you don't have this one thing. And what this one thing is correct emotional disposition, right? What I mean by this is the majority of closers and the majority of salespeople, they're like this. Their emotions are like this. They have these big ups and these big downs. And for them, sales is like an emotional roller coaster because they have maybe 3 or 4 back-to-back closes. They make 15K, they're over the moon. And then next week, they have 15 sales calls and they close 0 of them. And they're down here, they're super worried about money. They're thinking, I'm not going to have coffees anymore. I need to go back to living with my parents. They're super stressed. And then they close another 2 or 3 and they're looking at Lamborghinis, and then they go back down and up and down and up and down, right? This is so common, and it's really just because people don't understand regression to the mean. And what regression to the mean is kind of this understanding of statistical significance. To where if I was to flip a coin right now once and it landed on heads, does that mean that every coin always lands on heads? No, of course not. Just doing that one kind of coin toss doesn't give us enough data to see what the actual statistics are, which if we did, let's say 50 or 100 coin tosses, would find it's very, very similar to, or it is 50-50. The higher the amount of data that we have, the more accurate that data is, right? So with a sales process, you should not judge it whatsoever until you've done at least 30 sales calls. At least 30 sales calls that have shown up, that have gone through the exact same process, right? What is so common and what I see all the time is someone doing 7 sales calls, having no closes, and changing everything in their script. In reality, that could have been an amazing process. That could have had a 33% sales call conversion rate, or a 20 or a 25% sales call conversion rate, but you just didn't flip the coin enough. But you didn't understand this, and you just kind of didn't flip the coin enough. So here you are with an entire new process starting from zero, right? That's the most important thing, is not letting yourself kind of go on this emotional roller coaster of up and downs, culling the ups and culling the downs in terms of your emotions, not being as emotionally attached to, oh, I closed my last 5, or I didn't close my last 10, and being completely attached to and really only caring about the mean, the average. Now, if you are a more early stage agency owner, the first link in the description is for you, so click that. Like this video, comment, let me know what other types of videos you want me to make, and I'll see you in the next one. Okay?